My guest tonight is a writer, actor, director, electrician, probably everything, every role that's on a film set he's done. And he hails from New Zealand. So it's actually Saturday afternoon over there. His latest film is called Dead, which I reviewed. If you go to my Eclectic Arts site, then you'll see my review. Please welcome to the Eclectic Arts virtual studio, Hayden J. Weal.
Hi. Hello. How are you? Kia ora, Mark. How are you?
I'm doing good, Hayden. How are you?
I'm feeling really great. I'm really happy to be here. I've been looking forward to talking to you.
Yeah, so am I. I think we've got a lot of things to talk about, and I'm so glad that this is one of those instances where I've actually seen the film before I talk to the talent.
That's good. That's helpful.
Yeah, so let's actually just jump right into the film, and we'll kind of talk about some other topics as we kind of go along in this half an hour or so. I think I wrote in my review that I was not expecting Dead to have such a heart to it. There really is this piece, because the trailer kind of comes off of like a horror comedy thriller kind of thing, which it is. But then there's this underlying heart that I really, really like. That's what grabbed me and put me into the film. So can you kind of walk me through the early beginnings of this idea for the film and how you got to this point now?
Yeah, sure thing. I wanted to work with Tom Sainsbury. That's basically how this whole thing started. He's Marbles in the film. He's the lead character in the movie. I'd seen a bit of his work before and I loved him, wanted to work with him. There was something so vulnerable and warm and naive about him as an actor. And so when I met him at the New Zealand Film Awards in 2016, I ran up to him and grabbed him and told him how excited I was to finally meet him. And he said to me, he had seen my film, which is a movie called Chronesthesia, or Love and Time Travel, and that was made in 2016, and that's out, I think, on Amazon Prime and stuff. And he had seen it, and he said, you remind me so much of my nephew. He's so excited. He's so excited like you. And I said, oh, cool. Is he a good guy? Is he cool? And he goes, yeah, he's about to turn 3. and that's how we kind of became friends. Then we wrote the film together, just kind of came up with it, realized that we weren't going to ever get a budget. There's only one kind of studio in New Zealand. That's the New Zealand Film Commission. And they have a very strict agenda to further New Zealand culture. And a film about ghosts and a murder mystery and a dead cop isn't really cultural content. So we knew we didn't want to go and chase taxpayer dollars. So we went it alone with just a bunch of friends. And all these people jumped on board and we raised the money. And yeah, here we are. So I guess everybody that worked on the movie did so because they loved the idea of it and they were passionate about making something with a group of people that were also passionate about making something. And nobody was doing it for the money. So maybe a little bit of heart just got infused into the project purely because of how we made it. I hope so.
Well, no, yeah, I mean, that actually would make sense. And in some ways, there's parallels to what Alice does, who's, this is their tour, because they've created like a community of artists, dancers and, designers and all kinds of people that they've kind of befriended over the years. And so if they have, say, a music video to do, then they can kind of call on these people and they're like, hey, I'll be there. Tell me what day, what time, kind of a thing. And it's all about the art. So it sounds kind of similar to what you're describing with your film.
I love that. I mean, it's such a privilege to be able to create anything. And I hope that we always treat it that way. We never do it for the paycheck. And yeah, I mean, everybody that worked on Dead and that helped out with Dead, they will be our first call. As soon as we get the next thing up and running, as soon as we have some budget, they're the first calls. The people that said no for whatever reason because they weren't getting paid enough, I probably won't work with them.
Well, and I've talked to some of the other local people, and some of these local artists here have actually been interviewed during this time since May. I've done a lot of these interviews.
Yeah.
But we talk about that all the time. That what are you trying to accomplish? Who are you trying to work with? Are you trying to work with good people, good ideas? Hopefully both. And those folks that maybe don't quite align with what you're trying to do, then, just kind of let them fall by the wayside. They're going to go do whatever they do. I know one of the artists that I was talking to not that long ago was getting discouraged because there's some gatekeepers here in Seattle that in the film community that kind of well, they kind of gatekeep. So they kind of feel like they can say who can do this and who can't do this. And I'm kind of like, they're a gatekeeper on a local level. You're in the United States and you're also in this world. You have a lot of connections, and she does. She's got connections all around that you can tap those resources. You could tap Alice. You could tap people that I know. And it's like, you don't have to think in terms of that. So basically screw those gatekeepers and move on to the good people, because they're out there.
I love that. Definitely. Yeah. It's amazing who jumps aboard and helps out if you just ask. It's really great. There are some amazingly generous and giving people out there.
Yes, I agree. And one thing I wanted to ask you with you guys co-writing the script, a lot of times I'm learning that with films, particularly, what you start with and what you end with are two different things. So with your script, was it pretty much what we ended up seeing on screen, or was it like vastly different or somewhere in the middle?
I think it was somewhere in the middle. Like our first draft couldn't be further away from what we ended with, but the kind of the shooting draft that once we knew the budget that we were working with, which was $41,000 for the entire film, I was like, okay, cool. We're going to cut this, cut that, half the amount of characters we want in there, half the amount of locations, half the amount of visual effects, special effects, the makeup, the prosthetics. And we had to find interesting ways around that to still make the film feel big and still make it feel like a proper film. So we adjusted our writing as we knew what we could get. We also realized, we wanted certain cast members in there, and then it was clear we wouldn't be able to get them. But then we were able to get these other cast members, and we loved them. So we would change the characters to kind of fit those actors a little bit better. So we were always adjusting. For people that haven't seen it, I think it's only just come out in the States, at virtual cinemas, and also Google Play, Apple, and Microsoft, and something else. I don't know. Amazon Prime Video. I play a dead police officer who is trying to catch a killer, and Tom plays a hapless stoner who can see ghosts, and we team up to try and solve this mystery. For the longest time, the roles were reversed. So I was the stoner and Tom was going to be the police officer. And that's how we'd written it. We'd written it kind of with the other roles in mind. And that's probably the biggest change, was that we did a test shoot. Like, we shot a scene and kind of tried to play with some dialogue and improv a little bit and see what the characters look like and what they feel like and how the drug sequences work and what the ghosts look like. And that was a great learning curve. We just realized that I struggled to play low stares to Tom. I just naturally wanted to dominate him in every scene. And he just was more submissive in every scene. So someone suggested we swap roles, and we did, and it worked a treat.
Wow, that's interesting. I love hearing those kind of things about a film that, the behind the scenes stuff about it. The two leads, initially were going to be different, swapped characters basically. And that after doing a little test scene, you kind of realize, this isn't quite working. So if we switch, there we go. Now it kind of feels right in terms of the energy and the approach to the roles and that kind of thing. Yeah. And you mentioned earlier that that you had to kind of cut and change and get creative of how to make this seem like a feature movie. And I can tell you, it feels like a feature movie.
I'm very happy to hear that. That's good. We cut a lot of corners, so that makes me happy.
That truly surprises me. I think I had heard that the budget was fairly low, but when you said that number, I'm like, that low? I'm putting that number compared to what I saw, and it's like, I can't make it. I don't understand how that works. Aren't you missing some zeros? Because it really looks that good.
Oh, I'm so happy to hear that. I mean, like, we had a DP who was amazing, because me and Tom were kind of writing it. We're both white dudes, and I'm straight. So, and I play gay in the film, and Tom plays straight, but he's gay in real life. There's all sorts of political discussions we had before we decided to go down that road. But we knew we wanted to kind of make sure we had some diverse cast and crew. We didn't want the whole story to be dominated by these two viewpoints, which were kind of similar, So we made sure we had a female DP and a female producer and a female editor, and, where we could, we would mine New Zealand for all the people of color practitioners that could jump aboard and the creatives that could jump aboard. And we found this amazing director of photography called Tammy Williams, who could create gorgeous looking stuff out of natural light, which meant, great, we're going to save a whole bunch of money on lighting scenarios. And because it was her first feature film that she's shot, we suddenly were coming into all these great deals. Like the camera kit was going to cost us $70,000 for the 4-week shoot, which of course we couldn't afford. They gave it to us for $6,500, which is basically the price of insurance. So they just wanted to help see Tammy, shoot her first film. Then when it came to the color grade and making the DCP, that's I think $100,000 odd cost usually. But because we had this editor, Kerry, and it was her first feature film that she's ever cut, Images and Sound, which is a local post-production facility, jumped on board and said, we'll do the whole thing for $0. Just come back to us for your next project. So it's that kind of thing that just gave you a lot of, not inspiration, but like encouragement of like, oh, okay, people still love making films. It's not just a racket for a business. This is, people genuinely want to see creative people do better and better in this country. And that was really heartening.
Yeah, I'm just hearing that story, and it makes me feel good. And I'm not even involved with the movie.
Great.
It kind of restores your faith in humanity when you hear things like that. That people, like you said, they're not in it for the buck. They want to see someone succeed, especially if it's their first time editing or being a DP on a film. It's like, hey, we understand this is your first time to get off the ground, and yeah, just don't forget us when you get big or down the road for your next project or what have you, kind of thing. And they're already paying it forward.
Yes, that's exactly what happened. And there was other things like, I mean, all the investors of the film, I think we have 12 people that invested in the film. They're all local business owners that just, the way that the producer pitched the project to them was, if you give us $1,000 or $2,000 or $5,000, the chance you get your money back, it's slim to none. But the chance you get your name in the credits, that's 100%. The chance you get to come to a red carpet premiere, that's 100%. And the chance you get to dine out on this, you could talk about this film at every cocktail party you go to for the next few years. That's 100%. And so we had these people jump aboard basically for bragging rights. And it just so happens like we're so lucky we've made a couple of sales so we can pay all those investors back with their, they got like a 15% premium. So they will make a little bit of money too. And all the cast and crew are on there for deferred fees. The crew worked for a very, very small fee, which I'm too embarrassed to say, but at least they could pay rent while we shot the film. And then now that we've paid our investors back, every dollar that goes to the film, every person that buys a ticket to see it, that money goes straight to the cast and crew to pay back their deferred fees. So that's something we're really proud of. Yeah.
That's awesome. I mean, yeah, I mean, that's got to just make you feel amazing that here these people are basically trusting you and believing in what you're doing, taking pay cuts or what have you, or working for very small wages, and then seeing the film have success enough that, hey, thank you for doing what you did X amount of months ago or however long ago it was. Here's some money that we can start to pay you back for, helping us out initially.
That would be the dream. Yeah, if we can actually, I think we owe, oh gosh, I don't know what the real figure is, but I think it's like 450K, which still is nothing for a feature film. It's incredibly low. So if we are able to make as many sales as we can, then we stand a chance to pay everybody back plus their 15% premium, which means, they'll be lining up to be hopefully involved for the next film. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, I love the way it was pitched to some of the potential investors, and I think it comes down to a lot about your personality and how you approach people with any kind of endeavor, or if you're, if I was trying to get something started off the ground, yeah, it's like because I did sales for a little while, I used to sell beer, and yeah, so some places I'm going in, they're completely cold, they don't know me from a hole in the wall. And they're regular just sitting on the bar, on the bar stools, and they turn around and see this, this bald Asian guy walk in, and they're kind of like, but then they see me with little beer samples, and they kind of, what do you got there? And I'm already in. I'm talking to them, and I was like, yeah. So who's the manager? Who's the owner? Who's the beer tender? Who's the whatever? And following up on everything, making sure that if I said I'd come back on a Friday, then that next Friday, hey, remember me? And it was really interesting to see how your personality and how you talk to people, it's a huge deal in terms of getting them to say yes or getting them to say no.
Yeah, you must have learned a lot when you were doing that job. Like it really does sharpen your instincts when dealing with people, I imagine.
Yeah, it was obviously I started off with the easier folks in terms of like people that I knew at businesses or breweries or things of that nature. But then once you exhaust that, then it becomes okay. Yeah, then it gets tougher. You have to look around. I'd be driving places I'd never been before, just like literally going for a drive. So, oh, there's a tavern, there's a bar, there's a restaurant. They probably have, kegs in there. I got to kind of scope it out. Yeah. And some of the people are very gruff and they don't want to talk to you. And I learned real quick, like what times of the day to go. So like you have to be there like when they open, not at lunchtime, not at dinner time. They don't want to talk to you then. Maybe in the middle of the afternoon when it's kind of slow, and never in the evening, ever. Don't ever go there because that's usually their busy time. So,
of course.
But I learned that the hard way.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, like cold calling people is really tough. If you don't kind of have something that they want, I mean, I guess you're walking in with beer tasting. People pretty pumped to hear that, I guess.
It helped. Yeah, I wasn't trying to sell them insurance or anything. So
yeah, that's hard. We cold called quite a few actors on this. So Jennifer Ward Leland, who plays the mother character, who's like it's quite an interesting role, like a hard pitch for somebody to act that. She is a patron of the arts here in New Zealand. She's been around forever. She's been in a whole bunch of stuff. And her partner Michael Hurst, who's also been in like Hercules and Cena and all these classic old stuff. We just cold called her. She won New Zealander of the Year this year. She can speak the native language fluently, Te Reo Māori. She's just a hugely like gracious figure. And so I'd never met her. So I did the same thing that you did. I called her. I didn't call her at dinner time. I thought she might be busy. But I gave her a call and just did the pitch and just kind of hope that it worked out. So yeah, that helps.
Well, and obviously it did because she was in your film.
Exactly. She said yes to no money. So I owe her some beer tasting, I think. Maybe that's what I got to do. That makes people friendlier.
Well, hey, one thing I want to know too is that obviously you've been, like you mentioned, you've made a couple other films. You've been on other film sets. I know that you had a role in The Hobbit back in like 2012 when that was it 2012 when that came out, I think.
Yeah,
that sounds about right. What's your background? What got you into acting, into doing this?
Well, I just used to watch Back to the Future a lot when I was a kid. So that's all I wanted to do. I was like, I want to make people feel the way that I feel when I watch Back to the Future, which is super excited. And, that anything's possible. What does Doc say to Marty? I think he's like, if you put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything. And I was like, what a cool thing to be telling all these young people. And so I went to film school, and then I kind of got a couple of jobs on sets, and I realized that working in the camera department was really, it's like kind of a lads club, and I could never really keep up. And same with the lighting, you got to be able to lift stuff all day. And I wasn't really into that. But I would watch the director and the actor on set, and I just got jealous because they looked like they were having the most fun. They get to choose kind of how the film's going to work, and that's what I wanted to do. So I made a short film with a friend where we had to blow up a building. And we had no money to make it. So we were raising money by selling sausages, sausage sizzle, we call them in New Zealand. And a guy came over, an American guy. His name's Alex Funky. He had won 3 Oscars for blowing up miniatures for the Lord of the Rings trilogy back in the early 1999. And he was interested because you guys are making a film and you're raising money. That's great. Like, if there's anything I can do to help. And we said, yeah, we want to blow up a building. Do you think you could help us with that? And he said, that's my specialty. So he introduced us to Sir Richard Taylor, who gave us a warehouse to work in for free for 6 months, where we built a miniature. We got Sir Peter Jackson's team, special effects team, to blow it up. Again, it was all just like people coming along and helping out. We got a tiny bit of money from the Wellington Council. I remember that because we had to have fire engines there. We had to do it at the army base. It was all very exciting. Based on that, I got a job on The Hobbit as a mannequin, basically as a living mannequin. They wanted to dress me in different costumes because I was the right size. I didn't know what that meant at the time. But then we worked out that I was the exact same height as Martin Freeman. And when the news broke that he was cast, I was like, oh, cool. I've been wearing his costume for the last 6 months. And then they cast me as the body double and stand-in for Bilbo, which was Martin Freeman. And so I got to do that for the whole 2.5 years. And while I was on that, I also dressed up as a dwarf for one of the films and always got thrown in the background as a orc or as a lake towner or all these random jobs that we got. But I basically had a front row seat to watching Martin Freeman and Sir Peter Jackson and Sir Ian McKellen, Kate Blanchett, and all these people just doing the most incredible work, choosing the shots, talking about the motivation behind every line and every scene. And that was extraordinary. So that was kind of how after that, Martin Freeman said to me, promise me that you won't go and be a stand-in or a body double again. Go and make some stuff. He'd seen my short film and he was really supportive. So after that, I knew I kind of needed to go and make something else. So I went and made a film called Chronesthesia with no money that I filmed on weekends with my friend called Simon. And yeah, it was great.
That's awesome. And it's so nice to hear when you have, someone being encouraging to you. So, get out there. Don't be in the background in the next film. Go do your art, whatever that is. And I know I'm a musician, so anytime you hear somebody that you respect, look up to, what have you, tell you something like that, man, it means the world to you. It starts thinking, if this guy's behind me or this gal's behind me, I better get out there and do this because I feel good about it.
Yeah, exactly right. I remember I was in Berlin traveling, and I talked to this girl who said, we were talking about the homeless people in Berlin and they need to be picked up on a bus. There's a bus that drives around in the winter because a lot of homeless people die overnight because it's so cold. And we were talking about homelessness and people dropping out of school and people not wanting to work and people choosing to be homeless and all these things. And she said the only difference between the people that live that life and the people that live our lives is that we were told when we were younger that we could do it, that we could graduate, that we could go and work, that we could live the lives that we wanted to. And most of the time they probably weren't told that, or they were told the opposite. And yeah, that really stuck with me too. I think it's the same thing that you're saying. Like when you've got someone that believes in you and says, you can do it, please keep doing it, keep going. That often gives you that little bit of strength that you need when you're feeling like giving up or not. I can't do this anymore. I'm too exhausted. And you said, actually, no, that's right. Martin Freeman told me that I have to. Okay, I'll finish it.
That's exactly right. And that's an interesting, observation from that gal in Germany about, people's, their upbringings and their childhoods and things that may have happened to them that, didn't happen to me or you or anyone else. And, the paths you take in life, and some of those we don't really know, we can't even predict. They just kind of happen sometimes, and other ones we can predict and have a rough idea of where you might go based on these kind of things. And that's my teaching back and coming out about. I used to work with at-risk youth, so a lot of them have been written off, and it's kind of like
right.
Yeah, and so I could talk about that for a long period of time, but I won't right now because we're running out of time. but
another time.
It does come down to perspective a lot and understanding where someone else is coming from, because they may have had a really, really different upbringing than what you're used to. So you can't just put your judgment on them.
Absolutely right. Yeah, it's so important to remember. And that's, I guess, hard for a lot of people because when you bring up this rhetoric, I think a lot of people see it as an attack, like they haven't worked to get where they are. And it's like, no, you've worked very hard to get where you are. It's just that some people have to work a little bit harder for whatever reason.
Well, Hayden, I want to make sure that we have time to show the trailer to Dead. So
Great.
If the folks down in Alice Land in LA could show the trailer right now, that would be perfect, please.
I woke up in a barn. Then I realized I was dead.
Neurological medication in.
That's what makes talking with ghosts possible.
You can see me.
What happened, man?
Murdered.
That's a bumhole.
I need your help. I'm going to hunt the man responsible for my death and take him down.
What would you give to have him back again? I didn't even make it in time to say goodbye.
Listen, son, there are two feelings in this world that are completely useless, and one of them is regret.
I'm finishing this. No tag. Come on, man. With or without you.
You're seeing this through.
I'm seeing this through. Let's get to work.
Marvel.
I'm here for marbles.
You can do this, Marbles! We can still live!
Come to Daddy.
Are you staying with us?
You're looking so buff, your body. You're going to look amazing at your funeral.
Who are you?
I'm Dave Marbeck, and I can communicate with ghosts.
I mean, I'm no Bradley Pitt. Hey, man! Sweet!
And as Hayden mentioned, you can check that out here in the U.S. on most of the video-on-demand platforms, and it's also virtually through some theaters. I know locally here in Seattle, it was helping out the Grand Illusion Theater. So, Hayden, what do you have on deck next? Is there another project coming up, or something that you're writing, or?
Yeah. Well, I've been writing quite a few things with quite a few different people for the last couple of years. So we've got, there's a supernatural family drama over there. There's a girl band body snatcher film over there, a female-led detective film over here. There's all sorts. But right now, we're shooting a film that Tom is directing. Tom, who's in Dead, he plays Marbles. He wrote and directed it. It's a straight thriller, trying not to be comedic. It's just really, it's about a man going through a nervous breakdown in the New Zealand bush and fearing that somebody might be after him. And so I'm acting in that with him, and that's a whole lot of fun.
Wow, that sounds fun. And do you have is that something that's going to be a 2-3 week shoot like your film was, or is it going to be shorter, longer? Don't know.
This one's a bit longer. He's got, I think, 6 times as much money as me, 6 or 7 times. So it's still quite low budget, but I mean, hey, at least he can pay people, which is I'm so jealous of. So yeah, it's about 6 weeks shooting, and yeah, it's a lot of fun. There's like a big puppet monster and all sorts of fun stuff. It's called Loop Track, and it'll probably be out in a year or so. Quite fast, I think.
Okay, cool. I'll definitely keep an eye out for that and keep in touch with you about it for sure.
That would be great. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think one other thing I wanted to ask you too is that, so as you've been getting this film, like you said, having people buy it, getting it out around the world and film festivals and virtual theater things, what's that process like? I mean, are you just do you have information from past projects? Are the people in the business? So that's got to be really tough trying to get your film out there to have people buy it.
Yeah, it's funny, because you think the hard bit is making the art. And that's the fun part. The hard part is like convincing people to take a chance on it. And, you might think that you've got something really good, but still people would rather, watch reruns or, watch a superhero film, which, hey, I sympathize because I do that all the time as well. I am taking a huge step back with all that stuff. I've let my other 2 producers, Rob and Nicole, deal mainly with it. We found a sales agent, 1091 Pictures, which represent a great New Zealand film called Hunt for the Wilder People and What We Do in the Shadows, 2 of Taika Waititi's films. And so we feel like we've got a really good match with them, and we're in good hands, and they're kind of pushing it out and trying to sell it to some territories. And, hopefully people watch it and hopefully people like it. It's kind of all we can do. It's kind of up to the audience now.
Okay, so all of you out there watching this, you heard. If you haven't watched it, go check it out so you can let Hayden know what you think. And Hayden, thank you so much for taking the time this afternoon for you over on Saturday. It was completely my pleasure talking with you about your film and your projects and your background. And I hope to see, review, what have you, the next thing that you're a part of.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. That was awesome. I wish we could do this for 10 times as long. I could talk forever.
Maybe we'll do a part 2 on my own channels at some point. All right. Have a good afternoon and a good Saturday night over there.
You too. Ka kite, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you.